1.1 million Aussies plan to sell their homes. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your Steiner coffee and let's have a look at this article written by Tarek Brooker from news.com.au. So why 1.1 million Aussies are planning to sell their homes soon? What do you reckon? Let's have a look at this. So new data shows that 1.1 million Australians have got one thing on their mind, and the economic impact of this will affect all of us. Now, well, I would not be surprised if a lot of Australians have property and the market on their mind. We're obsessed with property. It's our thing here in Australia. It's everyone's potential path to riches. It's where all of, well, a lot of the wealth from our nation has been driven towards. It's why our economic complexity is going down, everyone. I saw an interesting tweet. In Canada, the amount of money spent on housing transactions is more than businesses are investing in R&D. I need to look to see if we're that stupid here in Australia, because I bet you we are. I would bet a carton, or even, oh, okay, let's not go crazy here. I bet a six-pack of Bundy rum that we're just as bad, if not worse, than Canada. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. So, as the normal hustle and bustle of life ground to a halt during the lockdowns earlier in the year, many Australians found themselves reassessing their priorities in life. And he's right there. For some people, this was the first opportunity they had to get off the hamster wheel. To just constantly run the race of, need to keep up with the Joneses. We've all been there. When you're just so busy, you don't have time to actually step away and reevaluate. That's often why in business it's advisable to occasionally just take a week away, particularly if you're in small business. Just take a week away as a retreat and then reevaluate your business. Look how you're going, look at the numbers, think of what your plans are in the year moving forward. During the weeks or even months stuck inside, people began dreaming of what might be possible. Or maybe they realized that, well, life is probably slipping away from you. You don't want to be wasting it chasing a needless needless grind. For many, it was the realization that living close to the CBD was perhaps no longer necessary. With things finally beginning to return to normal and border closures slowly being lifted, many Aussies were looking forward to putting the changes they dreamt of into action. Amid a year of pandemic and economic-driven uncertainty, some home owners quite understandably held off listing their properties, hoping that the new year may provide more ideal circumstances for a sale. I wonder if it will. This is going to be an interesting 2021. With all of these, remember, we've got, well, the biggest one that I'm worried about is trading while insolvent. That's the one that's just bubbling below the surface that the average punter probably isn't that worried about. But anyone who's been in business and has had people stiff them on invoices, that's top of your mind. I looked at, I built a whole database to run my business. So, I've got an access database, does all my forms, letters, even minutes, meeting minutes, fee proposals, all of that. I can just churn it out real quick. It's, it took me a while to teach myself how to do it and to build it, but it means I don't need it. Well, I need one less staff person or an assistant to do that. But, going back to it every now and then, I see all of the methods I had to build to chase invoices, to chase fees. Now I'm just a lot pickier with who I have to work with. But it just shows you. Maybe that's what I'm scared of. Because remember, well, that's why it's at top of my mind, is this trading while insolvent. And remember, we've also got JobKeeper propping up businesses. Some of them that will not survive through this. You've got mortgage holidays. You've got banks agreeing to not repossess. You've got rental moratoriums on renters from being evicted. All of these things coming together, when they start tapering them off, you're going to see more and more calls before this happens for continuation of government stimulus. We're already seeing it now because they're afraid of what could happen. According to data from research firm DFA, these two forces appear to be combining to create a wave of homeowners looking to change their living arrangements in the next 6 months. DFA's survey data concluded that over 1.1 million Australians intend to sell their property in the next 6 months. In terms of demographics, 298,000 international owners, foreign citizens, and Australians living overseas, 309,000 investors, 115,000 up traders, and 350,000 down traders, and 28,000 first home buyers intend to sell in the coming 6 months. So that's a decent amount of people. I mean, you can't blame people who have been locked in or restricted or not even in an apartment. You go stir crazy. When we were looking for we were in Highgate Hill and we were looking around at different apartments and places to move just to get cheaper rent. And when Rachel was pregnant and we were looking at some dodgy apartments, I said, no, we're getting a house. We're going to find a way to do it. I want a yard. Even if it's just so we can have the little kiddie pool there and they can play in that and jump through a sprinkler because their father is too cheap to get them a pool, like me. You really do replicate your own childhood, don't you? That's the joy of owning a house. You start to hear the words from your parents come out of your own mouth. So, while it's likely that not all surveyed intend to sell will take the plunge and put their property on the market, the increase in the number of homeowners looking to sell compared with 2019 has been significant. So, I mean, look at this just shows you the clear difference here. Look at the amount of international buyers that want to get out of the Australian market. Look at that. That's crazy. How many? That's just nuts. Trading down. How many people are trading down? Does that include the Aussies that are downsizing? I mean, here's the thing. You've got to remember, there's going to be a whole lot of millennials that will inherit a whole lot of housing from their parents in the coming few years. What's going to happen when they try to sell them? Who's going to be there to buy those properties so you can reap the capital gains from it or reap the rewards? Because I can't imagine everyone's going to simply want to move into their parents' houses or investment properties. Some of them are going to want to liquidate them. That's why there'll be more calls for getting more people to immigrate over and more, to try and keep population growth going. We saw yesterday articles calling for exemptions from stamp duty for foreigners. The government and people who've got vested interest, they're going to do whatever they can to keep this property bubble going. So we just need to imagine what the most insane, crazy idea is, and we'll see it. We'll probably see it happen. Just wait for Mortgage Keeper to materialize, because it looks like we're getting Investor Keeper. So while, here we go. In 2019, the same survey showed just 337,000 people intended to sell their property in the next 6 months. This 226% increase could potentially represent a seismic shift in the balance of supply and demand within the property market. This effect could be particularly notable in some cities such as Sydney and Melbourne that already have historic high levels of stock on the market. According to data from SQM Research, the total stock on market in Melbourne is currently at its highest level in 6 years for this time of the year. There you go. I mean, that's crazy. SQM are also looking at apartments down in Sydney, where they're already starting to shave off up to 15%. They've gone back in price. If we look at this chart here, everyone, the prices have gone back. They're going back in time now. But that increase in foreign investors getting out of the market. There you go. No wonder their calls to try and rope them back in. Because there's an oversupplied product, guys. There's an oversupplied product. It's a similar story for Sydney. Stock levels are currently quite high and similar to the decade high for this time of a year back in 2018. In 2019, DFA's data showed there were 3.69 people intending to buy a property in the next 6 months for each one who intended to sell. In the aftermath of the pandemic, that is now completely flipped, with 2.15 people intending to sell for each one intending to buy. Last year, overall, net demand for property, people looking to buy, minus those looking to sell, was slightly over 907,000 homes. Now, amid changing priorities, net demand for property in the coming 6 months was negative 589,580 homes. There you go. Property buying and selling intentions in the next 6 months. So here we go, intending to buy in the next 6 months. Look at that change. That's dropped. Look at that, over 1 million in 2019. Now 500,000. Intending to sell. There you go. Look at this here. That is, wow. Net demand for property is down. Net demand for units are down. Net demand for houses are up. even that is still, well, that's dropped significantly, but it's units that's going to cop it, guys. Units are going to cop it. They'll be the leaders in this. So you may think, okay, well, housing may still be good. It could possibly be, but think about the people that are going to be forced to sell their houses if they're 5-unit investment properties. They've all negative geared and not paid a cent in interest only for the last 5 years. All start plunging, and they'll be called. There'll be calls from the bank. So it's gonna be next year. This isn't going to be a quick process. This is going to be a slow process. The bank's going to do whatever they can to keep this all going. There's going to be just as much intervention that will come from state and federal levels to keep this going. If you want a correction in these markets, it's not going to be nice. It's going to be painful. We're all going to have to cop it. And the thing is, even those people who are trying to crack in, the economic consequences of a decline in property, a sharp decline in property, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, that's going to ripple through as well, because that means the wealth effect of those properties is going to dissipate, or people are actually going to be forced to fire sale some of these things. 2021 is going to be a damn interesting year. As people increasingly look back towards the freestanding family home as a bastion of security in this new world of priorities, this is also being picked up in the data. Going forward, net demand for units in the coming 6 months was negative 676,000, compared with extremely strong net demand of 577 in 2019. For homeowners in a freestanding house, the news was rosier, with net demand for 86,000 homes, but still down 73% when compared to 2019. With so many Australians looking to change their living arrangements in the new year, whether it's a sea change, tree change, upsizing or downsizing, this potential increase in the supply of properties on the market may prove a challenge for the nation's property markets. As you might imagine, not all states are equal as people reassess where it is they decide to live. DFA's analysis showed almost 9,000 people in New South Wales and around 14,200 Victorians were planning to move interstate in the next 12 months to Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania and Western Australia. Well, that's my family. We moved from Victoria up to Queensland. We were the typical Mexicans moving up to Queensland, back in the early 90s. And then they had this thing here called rugby. I didn't know what it was. Growing up in Victoria, I had no exposure to rugby in the 80s as a kid. It was just AFL. And I came up here and the only AFL team was the Bears. The number one destination for people from both states was Queensland, with 12,587 planning to move up north, followed by Western Australia with 6,788 looking to go west. What do you reckon? Coming to Queensland, everyone? Well, we're more affordable. If you look here at the property price, I'll bring up the core logic house values. What are we? Brisbane, 500,000, $500,000. So you sell from Sydney or Melbourne, sell your 800 grand house, walk away maybe with 200 in your pocket after you buy a house up here. Why not? You can do it. Weather's good. Employment opportunities aren't that rosy, but I mean, could you work in Queensland or work for a Sydney firm in Queensland? You can. I've got friends that do it. Could you commute? Maybe you fly down once a month or twice a month. You could do it. In recent months, the major banks have flipped their housing price forecasts from predicting price falls to now predicting prices to rise, and in some cities roar ahead in the new year. Given the uncertainties that lay ahead, any form of economic forecasting has proven challenging to say the least. For several years now, the nation has seen multi-decade low levels of property transactions, with turnovers at almost half the level of decade highs back in 14-15. Now with DFA's data indicating that 2021 may be the year as Australians decide to make the big move, the property market may face yet another challenge. This comes amid an already long list of headwinds that experts warn may impact the market in the new year, such as negative net migration and the conclusion of the insolvency moratorium and JobKeeper. I like the fact that Tarek is actually mentioning the insolvency moratorium. We need to talk about that, everyone. You need to share. Tell that to your friends that aren't in business, just so they know that this has just been implemented. It's how they're changing the rules. It's insane. 2021 is shaping up to be a transformative year for the nation, with property transactions to potentially spike to decade highs as up to 1.1 million Australians make their big move in the early months of the year alone. Knowing how this will impact the property market remains a question for those with a reliable crystal ball. But there are some things we know with a little bit more certainty. Houses will likely be in far greater demand over units. Yeah, well, yeah, you can bet the cart on that, mate. And there will be vast differences between how the big moves of 2021 impact prices in different suburbs and states. Ultimately, as people pursue their dreams of a life that better suits their new priorities, a very different view of what matters to Australian property buyers may emerge as we head into the future. There you go. There you go. So, a very interesting look at what's happening in property. And next year, it's going to be foreign investors getting out of units. And that's what we need to watch. It's going to damage the price in that sector. And I mean, I don't blame people for wanting to get out. Just look at all of the construction issues that have manifested here. And I mean, international students have disappeared. Tourism is out of the question from overseas. That's all going to affect the value of these things. How many people are going to be forced to sell? We haven't really felt the recession yet, guys. It's been hampered. The correction that the market wants to do has been hampered by significant government interventions. Now, these interventions are not without a price to pay. You can't just go and artificially intervene in the market and expect everything to be good. Generally, it just pushes the damage further away. So it pushes it on to future generations. You're going to start to see people hoping that next year will be good, and a lot of them looks like they want to get out of the market. They want to get out. So, I mean, let me know. There are a few people in the comments are saying, oh, they've had a unit for sale. They're glad they got out. They're glad they sold. I mean, they look tempting when you look at the price. But then when you look at just all the body corporate fees, the strata fee, all the other costs that are associated with these things. And if they're making you no money, if there's no tourism, I don't know why. Well, no, I know why. Real estate agents are saying, you know, units are booming on the Gold Coast. Now's the time to get into surface. It's because they want people to buy the bloody things because no one's going in there. I don't know why you'd buy an apartment to live in surface right now, just the way the economy is. It's a tourism dependent city, the Gold Coast. Guys, So what do you think? This is definitely 2021 is going to be an interesting year. It is going to be an interesting year. Even with the banks. The banks will start tapping on people's shoulders, going, oi, mate, you need to sell. You need to move out. And I've heard stories from brokers where, you know, you've been working in an industry, you've got all your stuff with one bank, and then they tap you on the shoulder, go, no, sorry, we don't like the exposure to that industry. You need to get rid of your mortgage or your personal credit cards or your business accounts. We're shutting you down. You've got a month. What makes you think that that won't start happening next year? They're not going to repossess. No, they're not going to repossess. They don't want to, because that costs them money and time. That's very different to having a quiet little conversation with someone. We'll have to see, everyone. Because a million properties start hitting the market. I tell you, I wouldn't want to be in units right now, particularly in Sydney or Melbourne. What do you reckon? As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays or Teesprings. We have pocket squares you can see right there behind me. You also can support us using Gold Pass from the Perth Mint or via PayPal. Have a great day, everyone, and watch out for those dodgy units. I'll see you next time.